Hi modelers, this is Brian with another exciting episode of Boss Builds. If you've been following along in the series, you know I'm building the, let's hold up here, the Fujimi 1/72 scale Type 10 main battle tank from the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces. Great little kit. If you've been following along, you've seen that in the last episode, I primed it with Tamiya enamel flat black. The point there being hopefully to get some good light and shadow effects on the model, and also to paint the running gear and some of the rubber skirts around it, which will be black. Now for this episode, I'm going to paint the camouflage colors. I'm going to put the base color on, and then the second camo color on top of that. And as you've seen before, I'm using the Tamiya acrylics, the Jieitai dark green and Jieitai brown, which is supposed to be a pretty good match. The colors look a little light to me, but we'll see how that works out. Some of the other things I used in doing the camo is I used a fun product. Don't know if this is available around the world, but it certainly is a staple for kids in the United States. Silly Putty. It's probably available everywhere, different names or whatever. Silly Putty is a very interesting clay-like product. I'm going to show you what I have inside. Not much, because I used a lot of it masking the camo. It's very pliable, very stretchy. You can flatten it out, stretch it out. It sticks good to surfaces. You can mold it to any kind of you know, crevices and things that stick up or whatever. Flatten it out, make sheets out of it. So you'll see me doing all that in the video, various techniques. That's the first time I tried using the Silly Putty to mask camo. So I had a variety of strategies I was going to use, and like any good strategist, I stayed flexible and changed my approach along the way, which you'll all see in the video. I also used a little bit of Tamiya masking tape. This is a very good low-tack tape. Low-tack means it's not super sticky, so you don't have to worry about ripping stuff off your model when you use it on here. But mostly I used the Silly Putty. So I'll stop talking now, sit back, and let's watch the video. Oh, one thing though, I ran into some interesting challenges painting the tank here, but I'll let the video speak for itself, and then I'll be back when the video is over. If you saw his last episode, you saw that I painted the Type 10 main battle tank black, primed it in black. Well, I have since then, as you can see here, I put the, now Tamiya is calling this dark green as I look at the screen here to figure out where the actual camera angle will be. They're calling this dark green. Looks a little light to me, as I feared. The Tamiya paints are a little lighter, even though I had primed it in black from the beginning. Hopefully I thought that was going to tone down the whole thing, but it's still a little lighter than I would have hoped. But that's okay, because later on, towards the end of finishing, I will be using some different kinds of washes. I'll be doing like a pin wash and maybe a slush wash or whatever, and all that's going to knock it down a little bit, kind of tie it all in together, particularly when I get the other camo color on, which is what I'm going to try to do today. I started off with, again, Tamiya's dark green. I sprayed it on, thinned of course, just straight color from the bottle. The whole thing, trying to keep the shadow effect of the black on there, and then after I did that, I added a few drops of white to it to lighten it up, even though I was complaining about it being light, and huffed a little bit on top of that just to get sort of a little lighter color on top than on the sides. You know, it's all about artistic impression, and doesn't have to be exactly like the real thing, because when it's a model, obviously the scale's different, so you try to get some scale effects, and a lot of people agree that lightening a color gives a little more scale effect when you see a large object as opposed to a small object that's the same color. So that's what I tried to do with that, even though I still think it's a little light, but again, we'll tone that down later. Now today, or tonight more correctly, I'm going to put on the second camouflage color, which is Tamiya's acrylic brown for the Jieitai, Ground Self-Defense Forces. And I'm going to do the same thing with this color. I'll first spray on the camo pattern with the color straight from the bottle, and then I will add a little white to it and spray it on again. And of course that's not going to happen until we mask it, and I will be going by the instructions here. You see the instructions are nicely laid out there with the diagrams for the colors. And my original plan was to just sort of freehand it, but the Jieitai camo is usually pretty hard-edged. And even with a decent amount of weathering, it would still probably be pretty noticeable, because especially in the small 1/72 scale, it would be really hard to get a really tight demarcation line between the two colors. So what some people would do, you can either use tape, as you see here, use the Tamiya tape, which actually I can take a minute to show you. That's what I used to tape up the mud guards and all the running gear, the black stuff that I didn't want to be green or other colors. I see the tape's coming up a little bit here, but no problem. But there's a lot of intricate detail on the surface here, and tape's a little stiff, really not going to do the job. Some people would also take the instructions and blow it up or size it to the exact model size and cut out the patterns and put that on there, and that works too if you tried that. Although again, it's going to be hard to get a hard line on there, because it really needs to be, to get a hard line, you really have to have contact with the surface so that the paint has a good hard demarcation line. So I'm going to do a technique, or I'm going to try a technique. I've never tried this before. It sounds really good on paper. I've heard a lot of people do it, and that is to use a product called Silly Putty. If any of you have ever played with Silly Putty, you know it's a semi-clay-like plasticine, I don't know if that's the right word, thing. Apparently it was developed when people were working on oil rigs. It was sort of a byproduct of the slurf that comes out of the drilling thing, petroleum, I'm not sure. Google it. I'm sure you can probably find out a lot there. But I'd always heard about people using Silly Putty as a good masking device for different kind of camouflages, and it just so happened that a couple years ago, my family's back in the States, of course, I'm here in Japan. They occasionally send little care packages with fun and silly things in it, and lo and behold, one of those silly things was a little egg full of Silly Putty, and I said, hey, well, here's my chance to try it. That was a couple years ago. So now I was actually thinking about doing this, and halfway through conjuring up what I'm going to do, it actually came to me, use that Silly Putty. Now the way I've seen it applied in different model magazines and whatnot is just to, basically take the shape like this and lay it on there. But I was playing around with it, and I came up with a different idea. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera. I'll roll in a little closer. Essentially, if you take like a sort of a flat section like this and just pull it, it sort of turns into a nice tape-like consistency. I don't know if you can see that there. It's not quite as wide as I've done before, but you can always just mush it back together and pull it, and yeah, it makes like nice little tape-like segments. And this is probably way too far away to see it. I'll try to zoom in closer. I'm just thinking I can lay this down there in the pattern that I want and use one of these little sticks, or even a like a Q-tip or whatever, and just sort of get it on there really tight against the details, and I'm hoping that I will be able to make some good masks just using the tape like that. And all I really need is, maybe a ½ inch wide, because the airbrush, I can control the spray good enough that I won't need to cover up the entire portions that I don't want painted. I just need to get that edge, and I can control the spray within that, because I'm not just going to blow it on like a can of spray paint or whatever. So yeah, that's the next step. I've got it all set up here. I've got the toilet paper rolls as you saw before, and I've used this little tool that I believe this is from Wave. It's just a multi-arm thing. I've taken some of the arms off. Just got a screw going through there to hold this, so I can put it at different angles. And of course I've got my handy-dandy plastic bag to cover up, which you'll see later as I do that. So anyway, now I'm going to collect my thoughts, try to work with this a little bit, and try to put the masking on there, and then we'll paint it. Actually, before I got started using the Silly Putty, I basically follow using this as a pattern. Used a mechanical pencil and kind of drew the outlines on here, because I knew it would be kind of rough eyeballing it once I got in there. So yeah, mechanical pencil, drew it right on there. Don't know if you can see the lines, the graphite on there, and hopefully I'll be able to cover those up, and if not, I'll just erase them later. So yeah, just kind of as a guideline, the mechanical pencil. So now, next, I'm going to try to work this putty into some nice strips and lay it on here, and hopefully all this is going to work. Actually, I thought I would share some of my experimentations with this. Again, this is the first time I've worked with Silly Putty. We got a little wooden dowel here to help kind of roll some stuff out. Hope you'll be able to see this. My big hands aren't in the way. First I want to start kind of with an elongated little sausage shape like that. Then I'll use this little guy here. If you've ever worked with clay, you kind of know what I'm doing. I want the ribbons to be kind of fat when I stretch them. So let me see what kind of results I can get with this. So kind of flatten it out like this. I'm hoping when I pull from here to here I'll get a kind of a nice thin ribbon effect. Oh yeah, that's working pretty good. Now the other concern I have is, am I going to have enough of this stuff to mask all these intricate curves? So I'm just going to lay this down here. Oops, this is on the wooden surface, but it's my hobby desk, so I'm not too much worried about it. And I'm just going to cut here and cut here. Lift up. Bring my tank over here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. And I hope I have enough to start with. Where's a nice safe place to start? Maybe just from down here. The good thing about this is you can stretch it and pull it along the way. So hopefully this is all going to work out pretty good. It sticks rather nicely to the plastic, or the paint actually. Let me see. Oops. Did I do that the right way? Starting over. It's really thin and snaky. I got to logistically remember where I was and what I started to. I got a little stretched out, so I'm gonna start again here. And actually, since this is fairly nerve-wracking when you do it by yourself, when you got the camera on, it makes it even more nerve-wracking. But anyway, that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to turn the camera off now and see if I can get it all snuggered up with the silly putty. Alright, so there it is, squished on the silly putty. Kind of did end up doing it the way I've seen read in the book. Flattening it out like tape really didn't work, but rolling it up and then smushing it on there worked pretty good. So now the next step is to paint it and hopefully not get any overspray onto the already painted parts. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm not going to bore you with showing you how to mix the paints and all that like we did last time. I'm going to go ahead and mix the paints up. Alright, here comes the moment of truth. I got what I think is good coverage on the masking. I'll start with the turret this time. Put in my handy dandy plastic bag. Actually, I haven't adjusted my spray yet. So I'll get this out. Alright, I'm going to dial in my nozzle a little bit because I really don't want to be blowing too much of this. That should be good for now. Alright. Now the name of this game is Control, because I don't want to get too much paint everywhere. So let's see what it's going to look like. I'm in there. Can we see? Alright. And you see I put some idiot tape on here, some yellow Tamiya tape in there just to make sure I didn't paint where I didn't want to go. Alright, so I'm going to start painting. Just nice and easy. Nice and easy in there. Trying to cut the edges here so I don't get overspray where I don't want it. This is going to take a lot of twisting and turning around and all that kind of stuff. You know what? The vinyl bag is a little cumbersome, so I'm going to set that down. And I'm just going to try to not get too much paint on my hand. Now, of course, this is acrylic, so it'll wash off easy. And just going to take it nice and slow here. Nice and slow. As I mentioned before, we got a touch of color blindness, red-green, so I can barely tell the difference between these colors. Maybe you out there with better color eyesight can see what's going on, but I can barely make out any differences here. This is making it kind of hard because I hope I'm getting coverage. But there's not a lot of contrast between these two. But I can see it when it's getting on to the silly putty, so that kind of helps. Oops. Gotten a little too tight there. It's going to be okay though. So, this is going to take a little while. It might have paid off to be a little more diligent with the masking and fill in those things so I could just swack it all over there, but I'm just going to take my time with this. Alright, so I got the paint on there, the two camouflage colors, a little mist of the lighter color on there. It might be a little too light, but again, it can all be adjusted later whenever I get to the weathering stage. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and see what we got. As far as camouflage goes, being careful, ever so careful. It's getting a little gooey here. That's where my little handy dental instrument can come in handy. And I just get in here, pull it right off of there. Well, I can see what the colors are different now. As I mentioned when I was painting, due to my aforementioned color blindness, really couldn't see a difference, but now I see a sharp line, and I also see a lot of overspray. Okay. So I got more overspray on here than I thought I was going to, which means we might be back to the drawing board. I should have went the extra mile. And here's a lesson for everybody. I should have sucked it up and went the extra mile and filled in completely everything I masked, because I got nice edges. However, whoops, just broke that again, the tow cable. I got nice edges in between the camo, but I also got a ton of overspray everywhere, and actually, I will assess the damage and see what I can do with it and get back to you later. Alright folks, well the damage assessment is, I don't like it. It's not going to be right. I was an idiot for not completely masking off the parts I didn't want. I thought I could control the airbrush enough to get it to go on there. Apparently I couldn't, so it's got this funky, swirly, kind of octopusy looking pattern, which might be good for World War II German tank or something like that, but it's not right for G8 dye. So, I'm just going to start over. This time I'm going to paint the whole thing with the brown this time, and then go back, mask the canopy, mask the whole tank with, still got plenty of silly putty left, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I'm just going to back at square one. Going to do it with the brown first, mask it up again, and then put the dark green on top of that. So let's try it again, and hopefully I'll get it right this time. Alright folks, time to get back in the saddle again. As you saw last night, I tried to paint the camouflage on here. A little too much hubris and overconfidence in my ability to keep it in between the lines, as it were. And got a lot of overspray on my dark green when I was painting the brown. Wasn't good. So I've gone ahead, as you saw last night, I repainted the whole thing brown again. And today I'm going to paint on the dark green camo. I'm going to use the same silly putty, which I was using yesterday, although this time I will completely cover everything I don't want to be dark green, which should have done yesterday, would have saved a lot of work. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to slap on the silly putty and get to painting. So one of the things I was doing to mask using the silly putty is I just squinch off a piece, beat it up into kind of like a ball, plop it on the table, use this little wooden dowel, and just roll it out like mama making a pie. And peel it up, rolls around, watch out for that. And can you see that there? And you can stretch it, and it's very thin, paint proof. And it got me to the stage. So I've covered up everything, and now I'm gonna paint it. Silly putty. Alright, got the brush loaded. Gonna try this dark green. I'll go with the turret first, here. And, oops, you know what? I'll need me vinyl bag. There we are. Because now this time, you don't have to be so careful and delicate. I'm just going to spray it right on there. Alright, I'll start off lightly again. No, I don't want to invite disaster. Here's the color blindness in me kicking in again. I'm painting this. I can't see any change in the color. But I'm just going to trust that this is indeed. So yeah, I'm just going to continue painting like this. Alright, we got it all painted. And a moment of truth, you know, this was a very sad bit of activity last night when I pulled it off and saw that the masking for my technique last night didn't work. Now, as you saw, I completely masked everything, and now I'm going to take the silly putty off, and got to be very careful because it's probably sticking quite well to the kit, the model parts. I don't want to pull off any detail. Don't know if it reacts to the paint at all. And off it comes. Nice rolling action. Again, being careful. It's actually quite sticky. I'll use my little dental tool to help me without scratching anything. Alright, well, since I got so much of this on here, it's going to take a little more time to get it off than it did last night. But it's looking pretty good. What I can see, huh? Ooh, wow, it is quite stringy. Yeah, well, that's going to work. That is definitely going to work. I can barely tell the difference between the colors, but that's just me and my color blindness. But it's looking pretty good. Whoa, Nelly, that was a close one. But luckily, I'm a wily veteran who can pull a win out of my pocket at any time. And that's what I did. As they say in modeling, there's no mistakes, only opportunities. And if you have a lot of patience, whenever you make a big mistake like that, you can just go back and fix it. Start over. So here's the tank, fully painted, as you saw. Fully painted twice, actually. But luckily, I just, after making that mistake, just repainted the whole thing brown again and just walked away from it, cooled down a bit, came back the next day and laid on the dark green part of the camo, which you just watched. So the silly putty as a masking medium really works very, very well. Even the first time when I made the mistake, where the silly putty covered, it made beautiful hard-edged demarcation lines. The only problem there, as you saw, was I didn't cover up everything that I didn't want painted, and hence I got a lot of overspray on the original dark green, which I painted first. Yeah, I'm kind of forgetting what I did, but watch the video and you can see exactly what I did. So I'm pretty satisfied with this. As you saw in the video, I also used a mechanical pencil to sort of outline where I wanted the camo to be, and one problem I had after that is when I put the silly putty on, sometimes I actually covered the pencil markings up, and some of the pencil markings remained on the tank. So I thought, oh well, it's pencil. Just break out an old eraser. I found a very soft eraser and tried to erase it, but man, those pencil marks were stubborn. Couldn't really get the pencil marks totally off, and in some places it made the plastic or the paint a little shiny there. But I'm not too concerned about all this, because once I put some washes on here, I'll do a dark wash and I'll do some pin washes in the panel lines. And then I'll do some weathering using the airbrush to dust on some dusty colors and do some dry brushing too. and hopefully those pencil lines will all but disappear. And then with the final flat coat, I'll put a coat of probably the GSI Krios or Gunze Sangyo, depending on how old your product is. Acrylic, water-based, flat. That's a really, really good flat. And anyway, that'll be at the end of the build. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, the priming it in black, one of the main purposes of that was so I could get some good, nice light and dark shadow effects over the whole model. But having to repaint it several times as I did, kind of lost that effect on the painted surfaces here. Now it still comes in handy because, as you can see here, the rubber skirts and the tracks are all black, which is what I wanted. The mud guards in the front and the back. So what I will have to do from this point is go in and paint the metal parts of the road wheels and the drive sprocket. And I was originally thinking of doing that with the airbrush, but I'm probably going to use some little tiny brushes called, appropriately enough, micro brushes. I don't have them here now, but I'll bring them back. I'll bring them in and show them to you. I think we might even have those in stock. They're like little ball type brushes, and you can get into tiny little places. And I'll basically do kind of like a dry brushing in there to get that. And but from the bottom up, it's going to be fairly heavily dustily weathered, so probably won't make too much of a difference. And then I'll do some dry brushing on the tracks to give them a dusty metallic look. So I'm fairly happy with the way the camo turned out here. It's not going to be too bad. From this point on, the next step will be to do the detail painting. Paint the gun, paint all the optics and the episcope lenses and all the glass surfaces here, which is going to take a very tiny brush to get in there and do that. Hopefully I can pull that off. What other detail painting is there on here? That's about it, really. The machine gun, I'll paint that. Again, I'll brush paint that in flat black and then do some dry brushing with some Tamiya metallic gray. It always gives a good metallic effect. Paint the lights and whatnot on the front. And that'll be it for the detail painting. And then I will put the decals on. There aren't many, just a few markings on the turret, some on the front and the back unit markings. And then after that will be the weathering. One thing I can mention when using the silly putty, as you saw in the video there, it was a little difficult to get off, but it all came off eventually. It doesn't leave any residue. That's another good thing about using the silly putty. One thing you have to be careful of, and I think I mentioned it when I was doing it, is it really, well, it doesn't stick to a flat surface extremely strong. It comes off easily, but there's a lot of details on here, and when I was pressing it on there, kind of formed around some of the details. And although I was very careful taking it off that I didn't rip anything off, interestingly enough, when I was done with it, I noticed on my desk there was this little teeny tiny part. I didn't notice anything missing on the tank, but there was this little part on the desk. I picked it up, and it was this light guard from the right front lights assembly here. That was just laying on the desk. So luckily I found the part and was able to put it back on. Usually that happens the other way around. You look at the model and some teeny tiny part is missing, and who knows where it went. Carpet monster flew off or something. You never know. So I was very lucky to find that little part sitting on the desk. So anyway, here's where we are with it from this episode. The Type 10 main battle tank from Fujimi. Got the camo on there. The next time you see me, I will have the detail painting done, and then we'll take it from there. After that, it'll be weathering and decaling and more fun stuff. So, disaster averted, camouflage applied. The Type 10 main battle tank.